Iran doesn't need to sink a US carrier. It could pressure America through Kuwait. That sounds strange, right? Kuwait is small on the map. It does not look like the center of a military crisis. But in the Gulf, Kuwait works like a hidden motherboard. It connects the quiet parts of America's war machine: ports, air bases, supply hubs, staging camps, air defense. And here is the crucial point. A motherboard does not fire missiles. It does not launch jets. It does not make headlines. But if one circuit slows down, the entire machine feels it. Most people think US power in the Middle East begins with carriers, or stealth jets, or destroyers, or cruise missiles. That is the image everyone sees. Massive decks, supersonic aircraft, vertical launch cells, tomahawks below steel hatches. But behind that image is a quieter system. Fuel has to arrive, ammunition has to move, vehicles need parts, pilots need runways, soldiers need staging areas, radar crews need power, cooling, and maintenance. And that is where Kuwait becomes so important. It is not just a host country, it is a network. One node brings in heavy cargo, another handles logistics, another supports air movement, another stages ground forces, another protects the system from above. So, what happens if one node slows down? What happens if a port backs up? What happens if an air base loses a few critical hours? And what happens if every other node must carry the load? Iran may not defeat the US head-on,
but could it slow the system through Kuwait?
To understand that, you cannot look at Kuwait as just a country on a map. You have to look at it as a layered military network. And the first layer is the part almost nobody sees. Logistics. It sounds boring. It looks boring. But without it, every modern military machine slows down. Fighter jets need fuel. Armored vehicles need parts. Radar crews need maintenance teams. Missile batteries need storage, transport, and inspections. Soldiers need food, water, shelter, and replacement units. Even the most advanced air defense system needs support. Power, cooling, repairs, supplies. This is why Kuwait matters. Not because it looks dramatic, not because it sits on every headline, but because it quietly helps keep the system moving. Think of it as the silent backbone. The aircraft carrier may be the symbol, the stealth jet may be the image, but the supply network keeps both alive. And at the center of that network sits Camp Arifjan. This is not the place people imagine first. It is not a floating runway. It is not a missile silo. It is not a secret mountain bunker. But in a crisis, it becomes a critical chip on the board. Camp Arifjan is where power gets sorted. Equipment can be organized, units can be supported, vehicles can be maintained, supplies can be pushed forward. That is the key. A military does not move because it owns equipment. It moves because someone receives it, tracks it, fixes it, fuels it, then sends it forward. So if Camp Arifjan is the logistics processor, what brings people and equipment into the system fast? The answer is the air gateway, Ali Al Salem. From the outside, it may look like another desert air base. Flat land, long runways, hardened facilities, heat rising off the concrete. But its value is speed. Aircraft can move people faster than ships. They can bring urgent cargo faster than convoys. They can support movement when the clock matters. And in a Gulf crisis, time is not just time. Time is pressure. Few hours can change options. A delayed flight can delay a unit. A slowed runway can ripple through the network. This is the strange thing about air bases. They look simple from above. Just lines of concrete in the desert. But those lines decide how fast a force can breathe. They help the United States react without putting everything on a carrier deck. They give commanders another path, another artery, another way to keep the system alive. But airlift is only half the story, because some things cannot simply fly in. Heavy vehicles do not move like passengers. Containers full of parts do not appear by magic. Ammunition stocks, engineering gear, generators, and bulky equipment need another door. That door is Port Shuaiba. And this is where the motherboard idea becomes clearer. Port is not glamorous. It does not look like a weapon. It looks like cranes, trucks, containers, schedules, and paperwork. But that is exactly why it matters. A port is where mass enters the network. The heavy stuff, the slow stuff, the material that makes a long operation possible. If the airbase is speed, the port is weight. It is the gate for everything too large, too heavy, or too numerous to move by air. And once that cargo arrives, the clock starts again. Must be unloaded, sorted, secured, moved, tracked, then pushed inland. So what happens if the port backs up? What happens if the schedule breaks? What happens if cargo arrives but cannot leave fast enough? The answer is simple. The network feels the drag. Not always in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it happens quietly. One delayed container, one missing part, one convoy pushed back. Then the delay spreads. But after cargo enters the system, one more question appears. Where do forces gather before they move? That brings us to Camp Buehring. Think of it as the staging slot, the place where units prepare before the next move. This is where the war machine becomes physical. Vehicles line up, radios are checked, engines are tested, Crews wait for orders. Equipment is matched with people. Plans become movement, and movement becomes pressure. This is the part people forget. War does not begin when the first explosion appears on screen. It begins earlier. It begins when a unit is told to get ready. It begins when fuel trucks move. It begins when mechanics finish repairs. It begins when the convoy forms in the dust. Camp Buehring represents that hidden transition, from stored strength to moving strength, from inventory to action, from planning to deployment. And if that slot gets crowded, everything behind it slows. But a motherboard also needs protection, because once these nodes are connected, they become valuable. That is where air defense comes in. Systems like Patriot are not just weapons sitting in the desert, they are protective layers over the network. Their radars search the sky. Their crews classify threats. Their launchers stand ready. Their support teams keep the system alive. And their ammunition stock becomes part of the equation. This is not just about shooting something down. It is about deciding what matters, what can be ignored, and what must be stopped immediately. Every alert costs attention. Every response costs readiness. Every interceptor used must eventually be replaced. So the defense of Kuwait is also a race. Detection, decision, interception, maintenance, reloading, then back to detection again. Now the picture is different. Kuwait does not need to look like a battlefield. It does not need massive explosions on the horizon. It only needs ports, bases, runways, camps, roads, radars, and people doing quiet work. That is the motherboard. Each node has a role. Each connection matters. And if Kuwait is the motherboard, then the dangerous question becomes simple. Which circuit slows first? And that is where the strategy changes. The target is not always destruction. Sometimes the target is delay. Not a sinking ship, not a burning runway, not a dramatic strike on television, just friction. Slow the port, slow the runway. Slow the staging area. Force the defense system to stay awake. Make every decision more expensive. Make every movement take longer. That is the hidden battle. Most people look for the biggest target, the aircraft carrier, the fighter squadron, the destroyer, the famous base. But a weaker opponent may not choose the strongest symbol. They may choose the point that controls rhythm. Because a modern military is powerful only while it moves. Fuel must arrive on time. Parts must arrive on time. Replacement units must arrive on time. Intelligence must flow on time. So, how strong is a military if everything arrives late? Start with the port. Port Shuaiba is not dramatic. It is schedules, cranes, containers, roads, security checks, and cargo flow. But that is exactly the point. A port is a choke point made of routine. Ships need berths. Cargo needs cranes. Trucks need access. Warehouses need space. Convoys need timing. And commanders need confidence that material is moving. The port does not need to vanish to become a problem. It only needs to slow down. If cargo waits at the pier, the delay moves inland. If containers stack up, the delay moves to maintenance. If heavy equipment misses its window, the delay moves to the unit waiting for it. Nothing looks catastrophic at first, but the network begins to drag. One missing part keeps one vehicle still. One delayed shipment delays one repair team. One backed up gate slows one convoy. Then the next convoy adjusts. Then another schedule shifts. And suddenly, a small delay becomes a system problem. But once cargo leaves the port, the next question begins. Does it reach the right place at the right time? That is where logistics becomes fragile. Camp Arifjan and Camp Buehring are not just locations. They are processing points. One helps organize, support, and push material forward. The other helps turn units into moving force. This is where war becomes thousands of small tasks. Tires checked, radios tested, vehicles serviced, fuel measured, supplies assigned, crews briefed, routes coordinated. None of that looks exciting. But every piece must line up. If one part is late, the next part waits. If one vehicle needs repair, the unit loses speed. One radar needs maintenance, coverage can weaken. If one team is not ready, movement pauses. This is why logistics is so unforgiving. It does not fail like a movie explosion, it fails by losing tempo. Slowly, quietly, then all at once. But what if the pressure does not hit the supply yard? What if it hits speed itself? That brings us to Salem. An airbase is not just concrete, it is reaction time. It turns distance into hours. It moves people faster than ships. It moves urgent cargo faster than roads. It gives commanders options when the clock is shrinking. But a runway is also a narrow resource. Aircraft need landing windows. Crews need ground time. Cargo needs handling. Maintenance needs space. Security needs control. If the base slows down, the whole system feels it. The aircraft still exist. The pilots still exist. The cargo still exists. But the rhythm changes. A flight shifts. A delivery waits. A replacement team arrives late. And in a crisis, late is not a small word. Late can change what choices are still available. So the question becomes bigger. How do you protect not just a base, but the heartbeat of a network? This is where air defense enters the story. Systems like Patriot are often seen as shields, but they are also endurance machines. Their radar must detect, their crews must classify, their commanders must decide, their launchers must be ready, their interceptors must be preserved, their maintenance teams must keep everything alive. And here is the uncomfortable part. Defense is not free. Every alert costs focus, every response costs readiness, every interceptor used must eventually be replaced. A small threat can force a big decision. Is it real? Is it a decoy? Is it worth an interceptor? Can it be ignored? What happens if that guess is wrong? That is the cost problem. The defender is not only defending space, they are defending attention, ammunition, repair cycles, sleep, confidence, and time. In a military network, defense is not just shooting down what comes in. Defense is keeping the network from exhausting itself. So how does the United States answer that kind of pressure? Not with one magic weapon, with redundancy. If one path slows, another path must exist. If one node is strained, another node must absorb load. One base is pressured, functions must spread. If one route is delayed, planners need alternatives. Repair teams must move fast. Supplies must be pre-positioned. Communication must stay connected. Commanders must see the whole network, not just one point. This is the real countermeasure. Keep the system alive. Keep it flexible. Keep it moving. Because in this kind of contest, the winner may not be the side with the biggest explosion. It may be the side that keeps its rhythm longest. That is motherboard warfare. Kuwait is not the motherboard because of one base. It is the motherboard because the nodes work together. Port Shuaiba is the cargo gate. Camp Arifjan is the logistics processor. Camp Buehring is the force slot. Salem is the air gateway. Patriot is the protective layer. The roads between them are the circuits. One node heats up, the others carry more load. If one circuit slows, commanders feel the delay elsewhere. And that is the final twist. The threat is not the whole board going dark. It is a few circuits running slower. Then the United States must spend time, money, attention, defensive energy, just to keep the machine alive. This is why Kuwait matters. Not because it looks like a battlefield, but because it looks too normal. No, now the answer is clear. Kuwait is not the loudest front line. It is not the most cinematic target. It does not carry the image of a carrier strike group. It does not look like a missile city. It does not sit in the public imagination, but that is exactly why it matters. A motherboard does not fight. It does not pull the trigger. It does not launch the aircraft. But if it overheats, the whole machine begins to fail. That is Kuwait's role in the Gulf. It connects firepower to fuel. It connects troops to staging areas. It connects ports to supply hubs. It connects runways to reaction time. It connects air defense to survival. And once you see that, the strategy looks different. If Iran wanted to apply pressure, the goal would not have to be a clean battlefield victory. It would not have to be a giant naval clash. It could be something quieter. Make the system slower. Make it more expensive. Make every movement require more protection. Make every commander spend more time watching the connection points. Because in a crisis, hours matter. A delayed convoy matters. A delayed flight matters. A delayed shipment matters. Even a small pause can change the choices available to Washington. This is the hidden truth of modern military power. The most important thing is not always the weapon that fires. Sometimes it is the network that keeps the weapon alive. And that is why Kuwait is so important. It is a small country on the map, but a major connection point in the machine. So next time you see a desert base, pause. A cargo port, a quiet airfield, do not ignore them. That may be where the real war machine is breathing. Because in modern warfare, the most dangerous sound is not always an explosion. Sometimes it is the silence of a system slowing down.
Follow for the next hidden military breakdown.